Basic unit of a neural network is neuron. It is inspired from human neuron. Human nervous system is made up of zillions of interconnected neurons. To appreciate artificial neuron, let's first have a look on typical structure of a human neuron. Here is the typical human neuron, where we have a cell body and input signals are received through dendrites. The strength of these input signals are also known as synaptic weights or connection weights. Higher the synaptic weight, more will be the contribution of that input signal to the neuron. All these signals are processed into the neuron and then some output signal is derived based on input signals and their connection weights. Finally, the output signal gets transmitted to other neurons connected on axon terminals via axon. Now let's look at the artificial neuron used in neural networks. The box represents a typical neuron P. Here the inputs are received through input terminals such as I1 and I2 analogous to dendrites. Connection to these input signals to the neuron P carry some weights also known as connection weights or synaptic weights such as W1 and W2. Inside the neuron P, typically we have two functions. First is summation function where input signals are summed based on their signal strength or weights. So output of this summation function is nothing but weighted sum of input signals. Sometimes the sum value is also known as net. This net value is then passed to another function which is called as activation function or transfer function. Decision of the neuron is dependent upon this function. We will look at various activation functions later in this module. For the time being, just treat activation function as some function which can take net or sum as input and perform some calculations and finally pass the result to the output.